everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Match Slip podcast. On today's show, we're interviewing Zulus Games, located in the state of Washington, with owner Matt Zaremba. Am I pronouncing that right, Matt?
Yes, sir.
And Tony Jutt, who manages the restaurant side of the business. You're in Washington. What part exactly of Washington? I was on your website, and I see it says Bothell. Is that how you say it?
Yeah, Bothell. You got it. We're in the North Seattle, so we're basically at the north end of Lake Washington, and Lake Washington's basically what all the western side of Washington's based around. We have Bellevue, where Microsoft's at. Seattle is both on the south side, and we're at the north end. So
okay, how far are you from Seattle?
Half hour.
Yeah, about 30 minutes.
Okay, that's not too bad at all. I've been there once before to Seattle for a conference. That was going back some time though, and I remember what I wanted to do when I was there. Unfortunately, I couldn't. I wanted to go see the Space Needle, which I know is like a popular tourist attraction there. And so I'm guessing you both have been there. I'm sure probably more than once.
Surprisingly, only once.
It's part of the what do you call it? The Seattle Center. It's where the Expo, the World's Fair was there, and so there's a lot of stuff there. It's the bunch of museums and the EMPs nearby, which is the Experience Music Project. I don't think they even call it that anymore.
The Mopop.
There we go, Mopop. There we go. And but yeah, I've been down there a bunch. I think my father-in-law, my grandfather-in-law helped build it. So yeah, I've been there.
It's definitely something I would like to come back and visit again. But as we get into a little bit about the store here and the origin story, I'm curious, Matt, how did Zulus Games come to be? Like, how did you start it? What made you want to start it and to get into this line of business?
So I had not really retired, but I was definitely in a transition point career-wise. And I had gone back to school and took some classes on entrepreneur program and different. I was doing like short-term investing at the time with the market and whatnot. And I flushed out a business plan for a high-end wedding facility. And that's what I'd fully tested a business plan, had ran past angel investors who vetted whether or not they thought it was a good idea. And I was pretty far along in going down that path when I helped one of my buddies open a game store. And it was just, I helped a guy, it was fine. But then I had another buddy, a good friend of mine, who also opened up a game store. And they're just your normal game store. We were doing just retail and, some tables to play games on. And then I just had all these ideas I wanted to try. And then they weren't really going for it because the game stores at the time really catered to like the 18 to 30-year-old crowd, mostly dudes. And I wanted to go bigger, I guess. And so, so I fleshed out a full business plan. It was at first, it wasn't a serious thing. It was just like an exercise in the background, but over a couple of years, I kind of fleshed the whole thing out. And then, then I pulled the trigger and started looking for property, found a good space, which was a 1937 residential house that had been converted in the 80s to a restaurant, a Dutch restaurant. And then in 2000 was the Eagles Club, which is like a fraternity, family fraternity kind of space. So bought that building and then spent a year theming it out to be modeled after the Green Dragon pub from the Hobbit. So, and that was part of my core business plan, was a welcoming space it was community focused. So it's lots of play space, way more than your normal game store. Now we can seat up to around 200 in the space because we've added on to it 3 times. But and then with food and retail kind of mixed together, but really community focused. So human interaction is really the term I use. That's what I'm trying to facilitate, and what I use as the lube. It doesn't sound great. Is games. That's what I bring people in. That's the how I get them in. But I'm really just trying to facilitate humans hanging out in the same space, playing games.
That's very cool. How many years have you been running the store for?
Bought the building in 2015, opened in 2016 with 1 employee, in 7 years.
You said it's bigger than your typical game store. How is it? Multiple floors? Is it 1 floor?
So when I opened, we had around 4,000 square feet, which is normal. I mean, it's even small. I mean, it's mid-size, let's say. And so now, I mean, we're only up to like 5,000 square feet. It is 2 stories, but barely. I mean, we have a basement, right, that has 3 rooms. So we have 3 private rooms in the basement, a couple storerooms. and you're going downstairs built in the 30s, so it's not the greatest, but I mean it's themed out. But we've added on. We used to have a deck, and now that's an enclosed like great hall. Our old patio, which had a couple tables and plants, is now again fully themed out, outdoor fireplace, can seat 30-ish. And then the parking lot we cut in half because it wasn't. We lost 3 spots total, but added on a 25 by 50-foot room, and then 2 more bathrooms. We're up to 4 bathrooms, and double the size of the kitchen.
Oh, wow. So with theming out the store as a whole, I'm guessing that whole process took a while to really get that all put in motion, from planning it, designing it. Was that the most, like, outside of finding the location, which is always, a key component of any business, was that the second most, I guess, challenge part, would you say?
The theme stuff I love, and I am definitely, when I first started this, I was on a mega budget, right? It was just me. And so I really did it on a budget. I flushed it all out. Like you look at what you want to do, what's the best possible thing you can do. And then my process is I look at what's the best possible. And so you can look at the Green Dragon Pub and all the different aspects they have: oil lamps, wooden chairs, wooden tables, big rock mantle, round windows, like big beams and sub beams. And so what I did is I just bought Home Depot lumber, and I just wrapped everything in wood and stained it. And then I bought like tongue and groove. I did my own wainscoting, which every 3 boards equals $10. And I did it myself, right? I just I YouTubed my way to glory. I priced out a bunch of different tile that again fit the theme. And the tile, I picked the one. Of the top 3, one was way cheaper, and that's what I went with. I tried to do tile on my own, and that was a dumpster fire. So I hired a professional to come in and teach me and my buddies how to do tile. So I paid him 3 times his hourly rate for 3 hours, and he just taught a class on the fly how to do tile. And then I spent the next 3 months doing tile, which saved me, I'm sure, tens of thousands of dollars. But so the first year I owned the building, I did all the work. I learned how to do parchment paper, faux paint jobs. So on the walls, from the floor to the 4-foot mark, is wainscoting, and then which is like a tongue and groove that I did myself, which is really cheap and quick. And then from there, I parchment paper painted, so it all looks like aged walls. And it also really works well for the restaurant because it's very warm. And then I painted all the place already had beams and everything. The place was pretty beat up, but I painted all the beams brown, and everything has been redone except for the ceiling, plaster ceiling. And it's very old, antique looking, so left that. But yeah, basically every other service I redid to be, wood grain, and parchment paper is the background. Built all the tables. I went to go buy tables, and they were really expensive. And I wanted uniquely sized tables. I wanted 10 feet by 28 inches. And so again, they were $1,400 a table. And then I just went and got some plans off Instagram and morphed them to what we were trying to do. It took me 1 day to build 1 table. And then proof of concept worked. So then I did 7 more, these big banquet tables that are perfect for gaming and playing card games on. And it took me 5 days, and it cost me $500. So it was really on a budget. And anyone listening to this, that wants to do something like this, it's very doable. I just did it. I just went out there and watched videos and just replicated it. So, then that was the first year. I spent a year of my life doing this to the day. We bought it on April 7th, 2015, opened on April 7th, 2016. And really it only took 9 months. The last 3 months was waiting for permits to come through, and health permit, occupancy, all that stuff. And then a year after we opened is when we started the remodel. And because after a year, at first I thought we had way too much space because we could see like 80. But after a year, we were at capacity all the time. So we started the remodel process. And then that I had a little bit more of a budget for. And I definitely outsourced that to a general contractor. So it worked out.
I love how you bootstrapped it from the very beginning. Like it was just you using YouTube. I think that's fantastic. I was talking to my uncle not too long ago. He's restructuring like a fixer-upper house in California that he bought. And he pretty much echoed what you said, that he's like, YouTube's your friend. It'll tell you everything you could possibly want. And so I think it's great that to save money and to to build out what you wanted, you went and taught yourself and, had somebody help you out when you had the chance. And I
Yeah.
really love the whole theme of the place with the Hobbit theme. I mean, I'm a huge Lord of the Rings fan myself. Did you always know that that's what you wanted the theme to be?
No, no. So we had three options I liked. I mean, broad strokes was sci-fi, fantasy, and steampunk. But when I walked into the space, it was obvious what I had to do. The ceilings are like 7.5 feet. Being 1937 and using there's no big open space, which is more common in retail, right? I mean, ideally, right, you'll have just a 9,000 square foot open space that you can create whatever you want in. This was not that. So no, it was determined day one. Literally, we knew what our options were. Literally day one after buying the building, walking through it, we knew what we were going to do. Well, then the one that really set it up though was, I mean, you can Google it, but it's the picture. Once I found that picture of the Green Dragon pub, I mean, that was really my template. I just the only thing I didn't do. I did wood chairs and I got rid of those because functionally that did not work out for me. I learned that one the hard way. And then round windows that does not pencil out on top, in terms of best case. I mean, it looks awesome, but to do that would be a lot. It would not be cost effective. So we have I only have a couple windows in my whole store. I ended up getting rid of most of my windows because I like to keep people in the mindset. There's no, I mean, in the front room, we have a whole bay of windows, but that's really it. It's once you're in our space, you're, in our space. So
was that first year of putting all this together the most time consuming part? I mean, I'm sure at this point now you've already had a remodel. So I'm guessing things hum along pretty much at this point. Like there was that first initial setup, I would imagine had to be pretty taxing.
I kind of put myself in this spot, and because of that, it has provided the motivation to keep going. But we've kind of been in full growth mode. And only this year really is now we're kind of looking at the big picture. But the remodel was really fun. I mean, in the beginning, I was doing 6-8 hour days, getting it done. But, I had a timeline. And so eventually I was working 12-hour days. But once we opened, it was only me and one other guy, and he had helped me the whole time doing the remodel. And had been open for 2 weeks when we realized that we were open 12 hours a day. So we're there at work 14 hours a day, 7 days a week, and we have no backup. So basically both of us worked 14-hour days for 4 years. It was until COVID, pretty much all day, every day. After the building was pretty much done, I fell and tore my shoulder. And a week before we opened, I was in a cast or basically a big sling that made it so I couldn't move. I had surgery and I wasn't able to use my left arm for 6 months. And so that first 6 months when it was just me and one other guy, just trying to really proof of concept, is a board game cafe model going to work at a local game store. And that was where I'm going home and sleeping in a chair because I can't lay down. I have to immobilize my arm, take a pain pill, pass out. Those first 6 months were probably the most intense because we opened up day one. It was just slammed.
Yeah. I mean, that's a lot to handle, especially when you get injured and you have to have surgery and all that too on top of it. That doesn't help. Once that all was situated, you have the theming set up and everything. At this point now, with the way the business is running, I mean, because like you mentioned, you could fit 200 people in to be able to play games and whatnot. What would you say from your standpoint is the largest expense with running the store? Because I know smaller stores they're just trying to get by in many cases. Yours seems like a different concept, especially with the food side of the business to supplement what the store makes in revenue, which we'll get into the food aspect of it soon. I just am curious from managing the business day to day when because it's probably going to be different from a smaller game store. What would be on your end of the spectrum here, where the expense lies at this point?
Just straight numbers. The number one thing easily is the product, because we move through so much product. The margins aren't, what they used to be, but we make that up with volume. So, it's hands down, we spend the most money gross on just product. And then second, wildly, the top two are product and labor. Everything falls into those two categories. The cost, rent and mortgage because I have 3 spaces now. It's all one entity, but we have 3 locations basically. We have a warehouse, the main game store and a block away the event center. And yeah, and so I mean, rent doesn't even doesn't even close to where like labor and product costs are. But that's mainly how it breaks down.
Okay. And the event center, is that a separate location you hold events at? I'm guessing you hold events in the game store itself, but is the event center for something different?
It's overflow. So how it grew is like we were on one path with a goal of being like a influencer in the gaming space as an end goal, years down the road. And then when COVID happened, we went online. We had a website, but not really. I mean, it was everything. We were all in-store, community focused locally. And then we blew that up. And then over a course of a year, getting everything online, working with influencers and just getting our name out there, we were able to grow our website side of things. And the store was effectively closed. We were doing meals to go and we were doing, some board game pickups and stuff, but it wasn't near enough. I made the decision early on not to let anyone go and just, make it work. And we had some meetings basically, like, this is what we're going to do. Your job that you used to do is going to be different. I mean, the amount of potatoes that we were smashing, we don't do mashed potatoes in our restaurant ever. Well, maybe we've dabbled since this, but, we were doing 100 pounds a day, right? And so literally your job is mashed potatoes. I bought a big commercial thing and yeah, so there's a lot of trial and error through that phase as we, got it. So as our website grew, we had a residential house we were renting that we outgrew. Then we rented a retail space, not a retail, we call it an office location near our game store that no one's ever going to rent. So I got a really good deal on it during COVID because it's COVID. And then we outgrew that. And then I got a warehouse. And then as COVID kind of started chilling out, we converted our second warehouse, which is that office space, into themed out the same way with the wainscoting, the parchment paper and whatnot, themed it out as Zulus. And then also over COVID, the trading card game side went really big. So with all the different games there, Pokemon, Magic, Digimon, One Piece, I could go on forever. Those communities grew. So now at our game store, and we're still dividing this up. We have our game store that does a lot of the bigger events, the community stuff, also has open tables for eating food and playing games, just walk in. And then our event centers where we have more of the same, but it's more miniature focused and it has this bigger play space. So you have I don't have a 4x6 table at the store that two people could sit on for 6 hours. It doesn't work that way. The event center has several of those tables. And the event center is flexible, so we can move tables around and set up for different events. Because we focus on, we kind of divide it up into role-playing games, miniature games, board games, and trading card games. So, and I have community managers sitting over all of that. But I guess the big thing that happened over COVID was I met Tony. And so our food to this point was more like burgers. It's the same, kind of the same thing we do now, burgers and chicken strips, except for our burgers and chicken strips now are phenomenal. And before it was good food. It was locally sourced, hormone-free, never frozen beef. But then Tony introduced me to all kinds of other stuff. Before we had 6 sauces on our menu. Now we have 23 sauces. Yeah, so I met Tony, and then Tony was there and started, as food came back online slowly over COVID and people started showing up, the food was wildly different. So, I can say easily that for a board game cafe, we have some of the best food on earth. And for a restaurant, it's great. Any restaurant, we're a great restaurant. But for a board game cafe, no one touches us because the scope of our food's pretty awesome.
You definitely have an extensive process with the way you run the business, from the event center to the game store itself to the food. And when I'm thinking food, initially, the first thought that came to my mind was, like what you see in many game stores, like the Coca-Cola machines, chips and stuff like that.
Right.
But then I went onto your website and I saw the extensive menu list. I said, oh, this is truly a full-blown restaurant on top of it, which definitely helps supplement the revenue for the store. And Tony was teasing a little bit of this stuff out to me. And so I guess this is a perfect transition to have Tony talk a little bit of the restaurant side of the business. And I'm very interested to hear, Tony, how expanding upon all of this came to be based on what Matt just shared.
Yeah, so I've actually been coming to Zulus for the last 5 years, give or take. And I used to come there just in the middle of the day and play Commander with my friends and have some chicken fingers. It was just a good place to hang out. And I had actually opened another restaurant in town, just down the street from here. And just this whole position just organically happened. It was just super fun because Matt said, do what you want, just make it awesome. I said, yes, sir, no problem. That's not a problem for me. And I just wanted to take what Zulus already had with their burgers, and they were making poutine and loco moco. They had this very expansive menu, and I wanted to expand that out just to a next level. So they had chicken fingers at the time. I'm like, how can we do this a little better? So I decided to do some experimenting, and now we do like almost a Korean style fried chicken tender. So it's super crispy. It stays crispy. And I cut 200 pounds a week so far, every week. And I have a feeling we're going to add another 50-pound case to that pretty soon. We just started doing new chicken sandwiches, and also big crispy, and they're so I'm actually from the Midwest. So in Indiana, there's a sandwich called the pork tenderloin sandwich, and the rule of thumb is you want to make this. It's basically pork schnitzel. You want to make it as big as you can with the smallest bun possible, and you just kind of eat your way to the center of the sandwich. And that's kind of my mentality, my love letter to what I grew up with a lot of our dishes. Like our chicken sandwich, the sandwich is sticking out both ends of the bun. We've got smash burgers that we lovingly call mall burgers because that's the easiest way to smash. Just get a big old war hammer and just have at it. And that, again, they sticking a little bit past the bun. Yeah, it's been a really fun time trying to come up with different ways to show off what we can do as a restaurant while still being able to share good food with people around us while we're playing games.
That's very cool. And did you come, Tony, from everything you're describing makes me feel like you came from a restaurant background.
Yeah, I've been in restaurants for almost 20 years now. I went to culinary school back in Indiana, and then I moved out here to go to culinary school again to get my culinary master's my bachelor's degree, excuse me. And yeah, I've just been working restaurants in Seattle area and learning so much from all these different chefs that come from all over the world.
I find that so interesting, just like the whole culinary side of businesses. I'll watch a ton of documentaries on stuff like that, particularly what I find myself watching a lot of is documentaries related to that from Las Vegas, because they get like some of the top chefs and stuff there. So I've always been really intrigued by that whole side of everything and the uniqueness that you brought both of these two things together, from the gaming aspect to the food. Do you both find that you'll have both a lot of players playing and a lot of people in the restaurant at the same time? And maybe do people just come just for the restaurant? Like, do you find a mix between the two?
I feel like we have a good 50-50 split of people that come to play games and say, oh, they have food. Okay, well, I'll order some. And then we'll have other people that come in and say, all right, cool, it came for lunch or came for dinner, and say, they have games? So it's kind of like that 50-50 split where we catch them on both ends.
We actually spoke over email. I wanted to have you talk about it a little bit, was the 23 different flavors. I'm a big fan of condiments, so anytime like I hear multiple different flavors, like that really piques my interest.
I was inspired by a chicken guy in Orlando, Florida. It's one of Guy Fieri's restaurants, and that's all they do is chicken tenders, crinkle cut fries, and they have 21 different sauces. And a big old menu, and people would just get like a lunch tray with a bunch of little plastic portion cups with all the different sauces. That was the big thing to do when they first came out. And they're still killing it every week. And I felt like I had to outdo Fieri just a little bit. So we went for 23, and it's got everything from, you get your basics, ketchup, tartar, ranch. Our ranch is delicious. We make it in-house. We go start doing some different things. Like we have our own like teriyaki sauce, which we make in-house. We have a sweet and sour that's made with a pineapple juice and Aleppo chili. And then you start getting into some weird ones. One of my favorites is Mind Flayer, which is blueberry, chipotle, pineapple. and it stays in this weird bubble where you think it's going to go sweet, you think it's going to go spicy, you think it's going to go tangy, and it just kind of wobbles around in all those different flavor profiles. And then we also have hot sauces as well. I think my favorite spicy sauce is Worldfire. It's our signature hot sauce. We actually have it bottled. Very excited to kind of push that forward and see where Worldfire will end up.
I mean, you guys have some really unique ideas. I mean, it really does feel like more than just a game store. I mean, there's a ton of game stores, and I think you guys are really doing a great service to not only the community, but really distinguishing yourselves out from all the other stores that are out there. And one of the things I wanted to transition to for Matt was related to the events you guys run. So you figure somebody's went, they've had food at the restaurant, now they're going to play. What are the most popular events that you're seeing that people are attending, and how many players do you notice tend to come out for any one of these events, like the average of or so?
I mean, so it really follows our passion. So it's because I pay attention to these kind of numbers a lot, and I haven't exactly extracted myself from it. I mean, the things I love or we love is Magic. So the Magic pre-release is probably one of the bigger routine events that we have, where we have 600 plus people through the store. This next one will probably break 800 because it's a Lord of the Rings set, and we're kind of married to it. We do a lot of stuff with board games. So we've just been going this entire time. So we do a lot. We go to Essen, which where 1,500 board games are released every year. And we're the only company currently doing this. And I'm not saying I'm going to keep doing this either, but we go there. We brought 4 pallets back where we can showcase next year's hot games now at PAX Unplugged in Philadelphia. And so that has got us in front of a lot of different publishers and game creators. And we're kind of the tip of the spear. So we do also a lot with board games. So we have a board game meetups currently happening twice a week, and those are growing. But the thing is, like, everything's so rammed for space. So I'm really at a spot now where I need to figure out something. I need more space. But what communities and how we do it. But easily, I mean, the board game, there's always board games going on. There's a ton of different groups that do their role playing at our store. Magic's, I mean, we do Pokemon pre-release is big. We had 80 people show up at midnight on a Thursday for One Piece, which is a trading card game that's new and super hot. And that was, I mean, we sold everything, which, I mean, is good and bad. I like meeting demand, and it's hard when we didn't get enough, but we got as much as we could. But I mean, we're going every direction. The Warhammer, we have those reoccurring. Actually, one thing that was really cool we did recently, we do a quarterly Twilight Imperium game, and people fly in, I found out, from around the nation for that. So we had 34 people, and the games take like 6 hours, and so, which is kind of nuts. So I think they did 2 the first day, and then the finals, which was one table of 5, was on Sunday. But we had 2 other tables still playing because they'd flown in, so they wanted to maximize their time, which I fully agree with. So that was, I mean, we do that. We were holding a class regional tournament, which is a dexterity game, which we'll see where it lands, but we're expecting 100 to 200 people to show up for that. And whoever wins that event will then go to nationals. And whoever wins that, there's 7 regional tournaments in the nation, and the winner from nationals goes to the World Series of Class, I guess, which is going to be, I mean, that's ramping back up. And we're into that because of the conventions and the community support for that. So, I mean, there's stuff I love and I brought to this, which I used to play competitive Magic, but now I'm way more into casual, like Draft and Commander. And then there's board games I've grown into too, because what game I want to play has a lot to do with who I'm playing with. And I'm trying to get that mentality also to the masses that, it's more where that's kind of our job, as we help people understand what your options are with different groups of people. So, but yeah, those are the biggest communities. But I mean, I could go off literally. I mean, we have 4 to 8 things happening, like events a day. So, I mean, it's a lot.
Do you guys still find with, Tony, you running the restaurant side and Matt, you running the game store business side, do you guys find you have the time to play, like either with the players that the customers, the players that come by, or just like yourselves? Do you guys still have that time like you'd want to? I'm sure it's a lot with how big the business is now, but do you guys get to do that at all?
I think it's safe to say we go back and forth on that. when I have time and when I don't. I mean, it gets really busy. And then the thing is, you have to have time. You have to make time, and so I'm working on that too. And that's really, I mean, my main focus right now. And I mean, the drum I'm beating is simple. I'm just trying to simplify a lot of things that we do because some things have gotten pretty complex. But I mean, Tony has been in and out of Commander a couple times. I don't know. I think he just told me he's swinging back into Commander. Yeah. So I don't know if I should be saying that, but yeah, just today I made arrangements to play a game called Great Wall at a friend's house. I met him through the business though, but he's a great guy. But I'm going over to his house to play Great Wall on Memorial Day weekend. So and it's a game I tell my dog, I've wanted to play that for months. So, I mean, you try, but no, I thought this business, I'd be sitting around with like 4 employees, managing a game store and playing games and drinking beer. And yeah, no, that's not at all the case. I drink, 12 beers a year. Like, I don't have time. So I'm working on that. But hey, what do you have time?
That being said, though, one of the cool things that drove me to this company was Sundays we close a little early, around 8. And the reason we do that is so we can actually hang out with the employees, hang out with their coworkers, and play games. So sometimes there's like a one-shot with the kitchen crew that I do once a quarter. We could be playing Commander with the TCG guys. We could be playing some random new game that the warehouse is stoked about and just wants to show off. It's just a good opportunity just to hang out and just take a breather like once a week.
Yeah. Oh, and we do a friend and families thing too, which changes depending on the games. So, I'm a couple months behind at this point, but we'd also do events where the staff and significant others will all come together on like a Sunday night, and I'll bring in food from the outside world because that way we can all be there and not have to think about anything and just play games and hang out. We also do that for different communities. So yeah, it's a focus. But I mean, I'm trying to get back to focusing on. I think it's a safe way to say that.
How many employees do you guys have at the moment?
It swings currently for the last between 40 and 50. So there's not a whole lot of turnover, generally speaking. But yeah, I honestly, it's like 42 to 46. I think the most I've ever had is 48. But it's somewhere in there, which is nuts to me. I'm still trying to wrap my head around that.
Yeah.
I mean, we were 11 going into COVID. 2020 was hard. 2022 is when we grew massively, and a ton of that was on things that have stuck around. Like I employ, I think, 6 DMs. So they facilitate Dungeon Master. They facilitate D&D. It used to be all online during COVID, and then they do some live, but was never part of my business plan. But it's working, so I let it happen.
So with all of that going on, you had referenced going from trying to go from complex to simple. Could you talk about one of those examples?
I mean, we're literally working our way through that right now. So, there's a million different. So for a board game cafe, the 2 things that make this complicated, the things that don't scale are card singles and food. So if your food doubles, if you go from selling $4,000 a day to food of $8,000, this is something you could speak to way better than me. In my experience, you're going to double your staff. So, and this is from my knowledge pre-Tony, but it's labor that goes into all of this. And so if you went from $4,000 to $8,000 in sales a day of retail product, you have one person just scanning more stuff. It doesn't matter. Same thing with trading card singles. It's labor intensive because you have to sit there and intake the card, categorize the cards, grade the card, sleeve the card, put the card away. However you put it away, everyone has to be on the same page because if the inventory gets wrong, it causes other problems. So yeah, those 2 don't scale. So, but yeah, there's ways to simplify. And so that's where I'm just trying to dive into each department, each group, and, see what base that we need to operate from. Because, the big thing is that coming out of COVID, it's ramping up like we have, right? Because we're busier now than we've ever been. And just trying, and then the conventions we do, because we do 3 or 4 in state and then a couple out of state, and just trying to make it simple. So I'm in the middle of that simplifying right now. So I guess is there anything I've simplified yet?
I'll still take another fryer. I know we don't have room for it, but the amount of food that we put out now is triple what we did when I first started. And that was when we first started. We were still coming off that COVID menu, so we had a bunch of easy fryer stuff. There was no saute at the time. There was no much on griddle, and now that's completely different. I mean, one easy way for me to do that was to look back at my employees and seeing what they need. So we run on a 4 days on, 3 days off schedule. So my full-time employees work 4 10-hour shifts. They kill it every week. But the good thing with that is when they come in a little earlier, they're able to help out with the prep aspect of it, get the line set up, everything. So it's a very teamwork focused that keeps our engine going.
Excellent. And I was talking to one of the listeners of the show about talking with you guys, and pretty much shared, that, this store has a restaurant side of the business. And he had asked me to ask you guys, this was a question he had: what food do you find is the most sold during the events versus outside of the events? Like, in regards to the food itself, I'm guessing it seems like it's a focal point for sure of the business. And do those margins help, I guess, offset what you were mentioning, Matt, about the low margins when it comes to like the sealed product and whatnot?
Okay, so the food sales so if you're talking about magic events, I'd say like you have, I would guess like 20%, 30%. Does that sound right to you?
So our magic players have learned the process of coming in early, feeding themselves, that's why I built our mall burgers, to be able to inhale properly. So if you have like bacon on your burger, instead of having a strip that you pull out, which is the worst, we do chopped up, thicker cut bacon. So every bite you get a piece of bacon in it. But anyway, the mall burger's meant there to inhale before you play a game. So we'll have a bunch of people come in. We'll have a big old stack of tickets, and then we'll have nothing for about 15 minutes from them while they're drafting or opening their packs. Yeah, mall burgers and chicken tenders are really big for those events. And it's just kind of wavy in terms of when they come in.
You hit on like one of our like things we're looking at, but or not really looking at. So if we had an event that was like a big TCG event or any big event that was like that, where you're switching seats all the time, it does impact food sales, I would say. What I learned early, and some of the research that I did before I opened, it steered me away from doing anything with role-playing games, because when I read, it was that people would come in and they waste your table space, and they don't buy anything except for a book when it comes out, once a year. But when you're a board game cafe, yeah, that it works. I mean, they're all buying food. And for the one guy who doesn't buy a meal, there's some guy at the table buying two. So, and they're buying drinks, and yeah, they're sitting there for 4 hours, but it's a reoccurring reservation. So when you're starting a business, I mean, you're just excited anyone comes in. And that was one of the first 2 years of this business was role playing, really carrying day-to-day sales in terms of food. And then all my feedback I got back was food related. I mean, I opened up with just a real basic menu, but that they just kept pushing. They wanted me to flesh out stuff, where I got the black bean burger, and then impossible burger, and then just all the different directions. I had one kind of fry, then I got tots, and I got sweet potato fries, just things like that. So, and the menu has some slight, changes they want to see. The biggest thing is 90% of people, 99% of the people that walk in my building have been here before. I mean, and we do get new people. We probably get, 50 a week, but we get thousands a week. And most of them are coming back. Right? They've been here before. They're coming for an event. I mean, there's a big community. I would say, I would love to know the breakdown, I guess. There's people that come here once a month, but a lot of people come here once, twice a week on the same days every week. And so, but event. So if I had an event that took up the entire space, though, it would impact. But we don't. Our magic events or any TCG, we have 7 tables for TCG, and then we have a big back room and a big front room. And so we try to we always leave some tables open. And then there's the event center, which currently we run food down from the main store, because to build a kitchen in a building that doesn't have a kitchen is a nightmare. And anyone who ever wants to do a game store should definitely know that. You either buy a building with a kitchen or you build a building with a kitchen. You don't buy a building and add a kitchen.
If I had a nickel for every time Matt said that to me.
No, that turned out to be, I bought a building that had a kitchen, and it still was a nightmare. So it took an act of God, but I got there. I didn't realize there's a lot of rules attached to that hood. So there's a reason why the Starbucks kitchen, I could go all day on this, but there's a reason why the Starbucks kitchen model has taken off nationally, because it's really hard to get. There's a lot of hoops to jump through to get a full-fledged commercial kitchen.
Of course. And do you find with the new players, because you mentioned a lot of them are recurring players, with getting the new players in, do you find when you use like the conventions, obviously from a marketing standpoint, it's a good marketing gig there for you. Do you find that helps bring in new players to the store or makes them aware of it if they don't know about it? Like, because you mentioned you don't just do it locally, you do go to some other states.
So the one in Philadelphia, that's really that's on a bigger plan, right? It's going to take years, and that's part of the global influencer and unplugged gaming goal. And that's, getting to know those people and understanding the games. And from a defensible business position, I like board games a lot because it's ever changing and it's really knowledge driven. Where a lot of the TCGs are just, it's an IP and it's a couple of relationships or one decision, can be made higher up the chain that could change the entire landscape. Where board games will never be that. Role-playing games probably are getting to the point where they have a lot of flexibility because most people start with D&D but then branch into other stuff. So yeah, that's more big picture. Local conventions, yeah, that definitely, I'm mega community focused, and yeah, getting people to know that we exist. We still get it all the time. People walk in like, I've lived here 2 years and I didn't know you guys existed. So I don't know how, but we still get it all the time because we really rely on word of mouth. So if you aren't into, we're peaking right now on TCGs, and we're rebuilding the board game side locally in terms of our meetup group is over 1,000 people strong. And so we rely on that website, and it's almost completely community driven at this point, which is also great, right? Because the people who run it are members of the community, and people just show up and play games, and it's easy, simple.
Do you find that it's easier from your end, since you have such a wide player base and the business is doing well, that you're able to say and I know this is kind of a leading question, but do you find yourself able to offer, say somebody wants to buy a sealed box, that you're afforded the ability to be able to sell it maybe cheaper than a traditional game store would because you could buy in higher volume?
I have not that's changed so much. Pre-COVID, we were big time Magic focused, and yeah, we had a bit of a discount. Both the biggest two TCGs are Pokemon and Magic, and they've both had price increases, which kind of reset the whole pricing structure. I'll speak of this freely, but we do move through mounds of product, but our discount isn't that substantial, and it's never been a big focus, right? And we don't, I don't min-max on the value we could be making. Right? We're not the guys out there charging market price. And that's why I think we grew so much, is that we have our margins that are definitely smaller and we make it up on volume. Right. So yeah, there is some room there. It's kind of, I don't know how much knowledge you have about, there's been so much going on that side, and so many things have changed over the last couple of years with the shipping costs and container costs and how that's all changed. Really, we're so focused on pre-sales from a risk management standpoint. It's driven from that, right? And how much exposure we have. And that's really what I do. That's my main thing that I have to stick. I'm the one responsible for making sure we're doing that the best we can. So, I can definitely speak to it. But yeah, we get a little bit of a discount, but it doesn't really matter. It's what gives you, it is so much better to sell something in store than it is to ship it, because generally you're doing free shipping. But we do ship a lot of stuff though. So, which I support that, because it literally is, I have employees that I'm responsible for that. That's how I pay them. So.
Definitely. Yeah. It's good, I think, having that both sides of the business, that you can do shipping to other places too, to just bring in that extra revenue. So Tony, I wanted to ask about, because this is another thing that caught me by surprise, looking at the menu for the restaurant. Like I mentioned, I didn't think of it as a full-blown restaurant just in my head before talking with you guys, but you have a beer list too, which I was kind of wondering, was that there already? Was the selling of the beer already there before you started at Zulus, or did you help bring that in?
So that was definitely one thing that Zulus had going for it before I even got here, was they had a sprawling beer menu. And it's just grabbing from anywhere local, whether it's down the street, 30 minutes away, maybe as far as Oregon, but mainly focus on those local breweries. We've made friends with so many different breweries. you'll find some of our games in their tap rooms. Just having that fun relationship between them. We've actually done a collab before with a local. We had was it pecan Belgian stout? I think it was.
That was phenomenal. Phenomenal.
Yeah.
It was so good. And what's the one you're working on right now?
Yeah. So, and then we have one coming out next month with the Lord of the Rings pre-release. It's called Green Dragon's Finest. Tagline: It comes in pints, and it's gonna be an English style ale. When I sat down with Evan from Watts Brewery just to talk about what kind of flavor profiles we wanted, we both read through the books and could not find a single thing of explaining what the beer they were drinking tasted like. So I'm already doing a special menu for the weekend. So I've done a little research on the agricultural aspect of Middle Earth. And Evan did the exact same thing. So we put our heads together and we're like, okay, well, what kind of malts would they have? You know, they're not going to have a lot of like hop fields that you'd find like here in Washington. So hops won't be a huge focus of the beer. You want something that you're going to have that's going to have creamy and frothy, maybe some like amber. So we're getting some really good like English pale ale malts, crystal malts in that. It was like a half hour of us nerding out over Lord of the Rings and beer to come up with what we wanted.
I wish you guys lived on Long Island. I'm loving this whole idea, and the Lord of the Rings set I'm so super stoked about. And I just love that you guys have the whole framework mapped out, not only from the store side, but with the beer side and everything. It's just excellent. And it has me really excited for your customers because that just sounds like a blast.
One of the things I learned, and this is one of my other lines, I've said this before, but the brewers, the guys who brew beers, and electricians, oddly enough, they have a disproportionate amount of nerds. So there's a lot of people. I mean, there's a lot of my customers are either brew beer or they're electricians, and so I've gotten a lot of support and help and knowledge on the beer side from those guys because they're just customers, and they'll be like, hey, this competing brewery has a really good IPA hazy out this month, you should grab that. And so in the beginning, that's how I got into all of this. I've learned a ton. We all have, but our rotating taps, we have 15 beers, 4 ciders, and a root beer. And the only thing that's constant, there's one of our nitro stouts is basically always there, and then the root beer. Beyond that, everything else is rotating.
And now, is the root beer, out of just curiosity, because I'm not much of a soda drinker anymore, but root beer was always one of my favorite sodas. Is that an in-house thing, or is that a local root beer?
Local, yeah. Yep, one of the local Diamond Knot beer makes a root beer. So we support that. And we also, one of the other weird things, and it is what it is, but I spent the money to get the Pepsi version of the Coke remix machine, which is, you don't see those that often, at least around here. And they hate it. They want me to give it back, but I have it. And but it's just, so you can have a cherry root beer, it has where you can mix and match all the nonsense, but it's one of the things we do that too. And we have a soda fridge where we also have like Jones soda, which I don't think is national, right?
I've heard of it before.
Yeah. So we have a lot of Jones soda, and we have just a lot of stuff like that. I used to order that. Tony doesn't now, but that world's shifted a lot because people want to drink healthier. So, which is good. So we have our kombucha and it used to be half energy drinks, right? And that's not the case anymore. So, we listen to feedback and we try to cater to it. So we have a lot of drink options.
That's great. You guys really have between the two of you, have a good 1-2 combination going. So I was looking at your website, and I saw there were 2 things that stood out to me. One was the reference to a new play space, looks like for Dungeons and Dragons. And then the other one was the summer camp thing. 2 things I haven't seen, like especially the summer camp side. I haven't seen a game store do something like that. You guys do a lot of things that are unique to most game stores, but what are those? What's the new play space in the summer camp thing?
So the play space has to be the event center, and that's just our we're letting people know we have two private rooms currently online at the event center. We're in one of them now, and we'll have the third one coming online. I just booked it in July, so I better get it done. So, and then so that's it's just a lot of our customers still don't know we even have this extra space, which is really a lot quieter when the gym upstairs isn't going full bore. But the summer camps is something that I hired a customer in 2019 to run. And then COVID happened. He's still with us. He's one of my DMs now. But finally, we did 1 week last year, a test run. This year, we're up to 4 weeks of summer camp. And I hope by next year we're rolling out the full, summer, the entire, basically the whole summer. And it's just a summer day camp where, I'm a parent, and your options have gone way down, right? If your kids my kids do play sports, but you have sports, you have music instruments, and then that's about it. And for like activities, it used to be, you didn't have video games, but I just provide, again, human interaction is what I'm married to. I want to get people to be able to spend time, and especially kids. We have the summer camp is they get dropped off, 8:30, 9 o'clock. And then we have basically a social time for a half an hour. And then you have a 2-hour D&D. Well, we split the group in half play D&D, and there'll be, one DM per 6 to 8 kids, I believe. And so we'll split it in half. Half the kids do D&D. The other half will have learning board games or TCGs, depending on what day it is. We go to craft time. So we do one big craft project as a group, which will change every day. And then we go to lunch. And then the groups that didn't play D&D play. So basically it's 3 classes, and then go home. So basically we just run them through. It's 8:30 to 3, I think, 3:30. And so it's, and this is, we upgraded it from last year. But it's something I've been looking at forever. And I'm super happy to finally get to it where we can fully roll it out and, start building that. Because again, it's all about human interaction and getting people together. So
we are guiding the next generation of gamers.
It's important. It's one of those things that, I just think it needs to happen, and I'm going to figure out a way to make it work.
It's something I wish that existed when I was a kid growing up. So my last question here for both of you is, what are the future plans for the restaurant and the future plans for the game store? What would you guys kind of like thinking up? I know you can't give away everything, but like anything that you're been floating around in your minds.
Okay, I'll jump on this. The immediate goal is just simplifying things, because some aspects have gone complicated, or really it's me understanding some things have gone beyond the scope of singles. We do such a big volume in store, and I want to understand more about that. But simplify, and then really it's I have 1 space I own and 2 spaces we rent. And I have that amount of time to figure out what I'd like to do is go to a bigger space, if it's possible. And then the other thing is, potentially figuring out the exact recipe for what Zulus is, and then looking at options. I don't want to own a bunch of stores across the nation, but I do want to own one in Hawaii. But that's still a pipe dream. I'm not saying that's going to happen. I might have talked to the Chamber of Commerce on Oahu. There's nothing, which by the way is the 50th worst state to open a business in, according to Better Business. But I think it would be a pretty sweet perk if I could have employees, take work a month there, and they're not even on vacation. They're just, I don't know. We'll see. I've been talking about this for years. But I have a track record though, of talking about pipe dreams, and then some of them do come true. So that's potentially. And then the streamers, we work with 90 influencers currently that are like in our stable, that we help them grow their own little, or sometimes bigger mid-sized businesses. And so that's kind of a new frontier, and definitely most people aren't even touching that kind of stuff. And I like it. I like helping them grow their own business. So that's something else we're working on. One of the reasons to have a fully fleshed out game store is it's a good backdrop when you're talking about board games. If I was going to sit there and discuss, let's say, The Great Wall, which is an awesome board game, and I had 40 people behind me playing that game, I think that would add some credence to what I was saying. So since we eat, live, and breathe in this world, I think that'd be something we're working toward. But no, that's more like fringe. The main thing is just I'm trying to make it simple and be able to take care of everybody that works here. So that's really like immediate.
Tony, what about you from the restaurant side?
So this year I brought Matt into a new world. We did a thing called Taste of Washington, and it was 10,000 people, and we were one of 50 restaurants and 200 wineries who just served the masses. And we set up a table, and we themed out. We had a stack of board games. We had a chest full of dice, and we gave someone a little sample of our dragon goat dip which is roasted chili and garlic infused whipped goat cheese. They ate that and they looked at all the dice and they're like, can we take one? Like, yeah, that's what we brought them. Just, a bag of random dice from Chessex. And they loved it. I had one older woman that said, honey, this die has too many sides on it. But I want to do more events like that and just showing off that we are a game store and a restaurant to the greater Seattle area. And this place is such a dream job for me because I am a huge nerd and I love food, and I can marry that with the work that I do here. Half my job is finding fun names for the menu.
And it shows right through. I mean, you could tell you guys love what you do as much, and it's clear it's a lot of work what you both are putting in the hours, but you could tell you both love doing what you do very much. And I have to thank you both very much for taking the time to do this. This is a venture that I've been really enjoying doing, is talking to various game stores across the US. And I really like what you guys are doing a lot. I hope to make it out there. And for the people listening, where can they find out about you guys? Where would you like them to go?
ZulusGames.com is our website. You could talk. I mean, I'm down to help other game store people do what we're doing. I mean, I think the whole analogy, raising tide helps all ships. That's where I want more game stores to raise the bar and get the overall community involved in this space. And I know a decent amount about what it takes, and so I'm down to help people do this.
And they can find us on all the socials too. So Facebook, Instagram, Twitter.
I'll have all of that in the show notes as well. I'll be doing a write-up of your store on my site as well. And again, thank you guys very much for coming on. Much appreciated.
Thanks for having us.
Appreciate it.
I want to thank you all for listening to this week's episode of the Match Slip podcast. If you enjoyed the episode, I invite you to subscribe to us on anchor.fm/thematchslip, where you could choose whichever podcast platform you listen to and subscribe to us there. Additionally, if you'd like to receive 5% off the Match Slips local game store, The Meta, located in St. James, New York, and receive a 5% off coupon, you can head over to thematchslip.com/newsletter and sign up there, and we'll send you that code right to you. With that being said, I will talk to you all in the next interview. Take care.